Age of Sigmar's new launch box has been revealed in full. We've got a huge horde of Skaven facing off against some newly redesigned Stormcast Eternals, a big launch box with all sorts of other fancy contents in, and also what appears to be confirmed pricing for the box set as well at £160 or $265. Let's take a look at what we've got. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking Age of Sigmar for a change. I know I mostly keep the focus on Warhammer 40k, but I'll admit I was personally curious enough to take a look at Games Workshop's other major game system where they're doing a huge release like this, particularly when it's some cool refreshes for Skaven miniatures, which I think are always kind of fun. And it does just show the way that they do things these days. This launch has a whole ton of parallels with Warhammer 40k 10th edition, and it's interesting to see how that's treated for their fantasy setting. I'll be much more focusing on the core models and things versus any rules or intricacies of Age of Sigmar, as I'm far more familiar with Warhammer 40k, but let's do a roundup of what's in the box, and a few of the major news and reveals that they talked about for it, including what looks like the price of the box set pretty much confirmed already. The new box set for Age of Sigmar 4th edition is now officially confirmed to be named Skaventide. We already well knew, of course, that it was going to be Skaven versus Stormcast Eternals. They had that big animated teaser trailer, though as with 40k they led with the teasers and then just mainly talked words about what sort of miniatures would be coming, and then drip fed out a few miniatures over the following few weeks, giving us a few teasers for things like clan rats and newly reforged liberators and prosecutors and things. The box set for the most part does seem to be a sort of equivalent for the Leviathan box set for 40k but in Age of Sigmar. Maybe not exactly a direct parallel though, as well as just miniatures and missions, there's also a further mission rulebook in the box set, plus also a bit of terrain as well, maybe taking a little bit of focus away from the miniatures, as I feel like compared with 40k's Leviathan there aren't quite as many big ones here, but there's still a fairly impressive amount of plastic. In the box set there's 24 Stormcast Eternal miniatures, including their hangers-on, 50 Skaven, which are mainly clan rats but a bunch of bigger stuff too, a great big 274-page rulebook, General's Handbook cards, 4 terrain pieces, stuff to play Spearhead with a book called Fire and Jade plus a Spearhead card deck, a double-sided game board and a few range rulers. I thought in this video we could take a look at each of the contents and just have a look at some cool new models, though as mentioned I feel like Games Workshop do look like they've let the cat out of the bag early in terms of pricing for this thing, as similar to Leviathan, it looks like they're running a giveaway contest for this box set, and it seems that in the terms and conditions they usually have to specify the value of these, and have stated that the prize is worth £160, 265 US dollars, or 210 euros, and 450 Australian dollars. I'd say that pretty much tallies with what I'd expect for this. It is a little bit more expensive than the Leviathan box, and it's been a year since then and some inflation has happened. I'm not surprised they've raised the prices. This is Games Workshop after all. I guess there's a bit more in the box in terms of books and support type things, but basically accounting for inflation it's maybe not so very different from Leviathan, I guess. In general, as Warhammer goes, these launch box sets do tend to be some of the best deals that Games Workshop tend to offer. In general, you can get a lot of cool models in them, particularly if you can find a player with the other faction to split it for. You get far more than, say, a Combat Patrol or Spearhead box set for Sigmar. Let's take a look at the overview of the two factions of miniatures and look at the miniatures individually in some nice pictures they've given us. First up for the Stormcast Eternals, they recently had that massive great big range phase out, where a whole load of their launch kits and things that had come out later basically got retired, and now Games Workshop are either redoing a whole chunk of them, though likely a fair bunch of them will just completely fall by the wayside. We had a few of these teased already over the past few weeks, but it seems that the Stormcast in total come with a Lord on Griff Stalker, a Lord Terminos with an Acolyte Memorian, a Lord Veritant with a Griff Crow, and a Knight Questor. And then for the squads there's 3 Reclusians, the Heavy Veteran Stormcast, and they're accompanied by 2 Memorian Little Servants, 3 Prosecutors soaring aloft on their wings of fire, and 10 Liberators in the Stormcast Eternal rank and file. The general theme of these is that they're supposed to represent a bunch of things waking up from the Ruination Chamber. I believe out of these models that'd be the Griff Stalker Lord, the Lord Terminos, and the Reclusians, the Stormcast who have been reforged too many times and are starting to lose their souls and things. They've also not typically had mortal hangers on it like those Memorians, and they're painted in the colours of the Hallowed Knight Stormhost, as opposed to the more golden Stormcast that we've typically seen in the past. Facing off against them are a whole horde of Skaven. There's 3 characters, including a Claw Lord on a Gnarl Beast, really quite a big central sinister cavalry model there, a new sculpt for their iconic grey seers, a warlock engineer commanding some warpstone artillery, an absolutely massive horde of clan rats with a huge 40 of them in here, so you're not going to be lacking for rank and file vermin, 5 rat ogres, which are quite like the new sculpts for there, and a bit of fire support with 3 warplock Jezzails and the enormous great big rattling warp blaster. Let's take a look through the squads one by one then, starting off with the Stormcast. The Liberators I feel like are maybe some of the least exciting out of them, being the standard rank and file guys. They have had a bit of a redesign from the original release, standing a little bit taller. I feel like the upgrade is kind of subtle-ish, but overall maybe a bit more polished compared with how they originally came out. It seems that there's 10 of them in the box, able to be equipped with a mix of hammers and shields, or great hammers, or dual hammers. Not sure how much options or flexibility you might get out of these. A lot of starter box sets do tend to be at least kind of monopose. Then there's the 3 Reclusians, veteran Stormcast, who have been sent to the Ruination Chamber to stop their souls decaying too quickly. The miniatures are really quite busy compared with the rank and file Stormcast, a whole bunch of seals and scriptures hanging off them, though particularly the way it's painted up here I think the overall effect is pretty nice and well balanced, look quite nice for fancy veterans of the faction. There's 3 of them in total, one of them armed with dual axes, the other 2 with axe and shield, and they do get their little Memorian acolyte things following them along, one with a great big brazier, and one an incense censer. Next up we've got the remake of the Prosecutors, the winged Stormcast that used to have the really quite thin and spindly wings that were maybe a bit too easy to break. They've had quite a big redesign, with a more central sculpted bit of wings, and then extending out from that is a sort of fiery wing sort of design. One of them's armed with a trident, the rest of the squad with spears paired with a shield, and apparently they do have the option to either field them as a more open helm like this one, or one of the more standard enclosed masks. Here's the squad together, they're perched leaping off various bits of statuary and scenery. I think they look quite nice overall, quite dynamic models. I have heard of a few people talking about converting them into 40k things like Venatari Custodians. Then we get to the Stormcast characters. There's a new model for the Knight Questor, errant heroes charged with Sigmar for specific quests, for which they're dispatched alone into the mortal realms. This guy's armed with a sword and flaming torch, and a big shield on his back. The overall leader of the force is this Lord Vigilant on Gryffstalker, who was animated quite nicely in the trailer. He's apparently a lord of the Ruination Chamber, so I guess the commander of those Reclusians. He's armed with a hallowed great axe apparently. I do really quite like the swooshing fire that comes out behind it. You can really get the sense of motion with that thing. Overall I feel like it's pretty striking, really quite a nicely balanced model. I like the contrast of the cloak and the armour and things. And the Gryffstalker I think looks pretty interesting. All very regal but really quite a sinister cavalry model there. And probably not really one you'd want chasing you down. For another more minor character, there's a Lord Veritant, an anti-chaos specialist with a staff of abjuration that he's armed with. He's the owner of that cool pet which they teased in the Monday teaser trailer. Apparently that's a Griff Crow, and I'm guessing that maybe by the styling of the model he might also be part of that whole Ruination Chamber thing. He's got a fair few skull motifs and the same sort of flaming crown type thing. Finally for the characters we've got the Lord Terminos. He's another one of the Ruination Chamber type models, apparently an executioner, again with a great big flaming axe here. I'm sure he'll be reaping a deadly tally on the enemy in-game, though apparently he's also the headsman who can take the lives of Stormcast who've been reforged too many times, ending the misery of the soul-stricken. He also comes with one of those Memorian acolytes. Otherwise, facing off against them, let's take a look at some rat things. The clan rats do absolutely dominate the box from the Skaven point of view, a huge 40 of them. And it seems like there is at least a fair bit of variation in between them. Looks like they have 2 different command sections. We've got one here with a clan rat raising a bell, a unit champion, and a tattered and ragged banner. And then there's a second command section here. Looks like we've got the musician taking up a drum this time round, and a more sort of standard rather than a flying flag. In general, the new version of the clan rat seems to have gone down really quite well. They haven't really shaken up the formula too much. Little untwisted foot soldiers of the Skaven, fierce but maybe not the biggest threat individually, but they have plenty of numbers with which to drag the foe down. I think there's quite a lot of character even on the individual models, some nice sinister cowled ones, some screaming out at the enemy, or raising their weapons for a blow, maybe not so very different from what came before but realised in a whole load more detail. Apparently the miniatures are kind of similar, most of them coming in just 2 pieces, which might not necessarily be the worst thing in the world if you are going to be making up quite a few of them. Finally for the clan rats, here's just a family photo of them all together. Really quite a horde of bodies to drown the mortal realms in there. Otherwise though, the other models on the Skaven side are a bit more central and focal in nature. We've got 3 rat ogres, a hideous combination of twisted flesh and mechanical parts. One's got a gun of some sort, and the other 2 have had their forelimb replaced by a nasty blade and a mechanical claw individually. Nice warpstone infused hulking great brutes there. You can see the individual crystals and where they've had impact on their flesh. And one of them seems to have his head enclosed in a great big sinister helmet as well. Lots of fun little details on these guys. They are fairly busy miniatures with a whole load of flesh plus various scraps of fur. For the Skaven characters, there's a Warlock Engineer previewed by Games Workshop earlier. He's commanding the gunnery no doubt and has a rifle for sniping down some Stormcast. He'll be commanding a battery of Warplock Jezzails. There's 3 of these in the box to take down elite infantry from afar. Probably the safest way to take down Stormcast Eternals, to be honest. Then we've got one of the centerpieces for the Skaven in the Rattling Warp Blaster. I guess this is harking back to the Rattling guns a bit. A great big 6-barrel monstrosity with a Skaven with a beady glowing eye commanding it. A whole load of slightly less senior clan rats pushing it along to get it into place. It looks like it's being fed with a glowing barrel full of warpstone, hopefully causing some nice and scary destruction in the enemy's ranks. I'm sure that'll be pretty nasty against some infantry. Then for character models, we've got a new interpretation of the Grey Seers, the prophets of the Great Horned Rat. This one's perched atop some shattered machinery with a whole load of little rats scurrying along out of the depths below. I like the sinister and twisted bestial face here, with a very devilish set of horns being sported. And finally for a dangerous lord in command of the charge, we've got a Claw Lord on Norbeast. Again, he made an appearance in the whole Sigmar reveal trailer type thing, looking like he's got a warpstone spear there, a nice handheld pistol, and riding a cavalry mount that makes the Stormcast look quite a bit less sinister by comparison. Again, really quite a fun model, that one, with a whole load of character, both with the mount and the commander. That's the Skaven half, so let's take a look at a few of the extras of the box set. There's a few small bits of terrain, 2 medium-sized walls, one with a nice bell and some Skaven runes. It looks like it's been stuff that was originally built by Forces of Order, but then taken over by the Rat Men. There's a couple of bits of fallen statuary as well. They show the double-sided game board here as well. I think that's intended to play their Spearhead game, basically combat patrol for Age of Sigmar. Otherwise, as ever with these starter sets, you get the core book, a 272-page core book for Age of Sigmar, lots of lore and miniature galleries, and then all the gameplay stuff that you need, core and advanced rules, and then some ways to play missions with the First Blood and Path to Glory battle packs, I'd guess for a starter game, and then if you're playing that game mode. They did give us a few quick teasers as some of the pages as well. Then, kind of unusually for these starter sets, there's also an entirely separate book called Fire and Jade. This one is apparently the book for playing Warhammer Age of Sigmar Spearhead. This one's got rules for all the Spearhead box sets that are available for Age of Sigmar currently, plus one for Sons of Behemat, so you can play them even if they don't have one, and new Spearheads from the Skaventide box set, using some but not all of the models. It also comes with some mission deck cards as well, for putting slight twist on the Spearhead games that you play, so they don't all have to be the same. Finally, as well as all that, it comes with some General's Handbook cards. Apparently the new Age of Sigmar General's Handbook will be available not so very long after the launch of the main thing, as well as the core rulebook and everything separately. Overall, seems like a pretty fun box set. I'll be interested to hear what you think of the miniatures. I think for me, some of my favourite ones might be the Rat Ogres, perhaps. I think the central commander guy for Sigmar with the flaming axe looks rather nice as well. Plus those Reclusians I think do quite a good job of being snazzy elite for the faction. Look forward to hearing your thoughts though, particularly any more insights from people who actually play Age of Sigmar. I know I'm a bit limited there compared with 40k. I've certainly enjoyed seeing some fun new models though. What do you reckon to the box set? And would it be worth it to you if it's £160 or $265 US? In any case, looking forward to hearing what you think. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more about Games Workshop's news or releases. I do generally tend to keep the focus fairly firmly fixed on Warhammer 40k. I do like to check in every so often when there's big news for the other settings that Games Workshop make, particularly massive box sets like this. Finally, if you've enjoyed the video and ones like this and you'd like to help support the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description down below. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.